So, welcome to Menable Matters with me, Steve Whitton. This series of programs is brought to you in association with Jardine Motors Group, who have very kindly put forward a number of their key people to tell us their stories and talk to us about anxiety, stress, and dealing with the pressure of the motor trade. Now, my guest on this episode is a single mum. She moved from Devon up to Manchester and has risen to the dizzy heights of service manager in one of Jardine's Manchester dealerships. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce today Emma Kingston. Emma, how are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Now, just before we started recording, you said you weren't sure whether you've picked up the northern accent, but just from that little intro there, I would say you most definitely have.
Oh, well, it's debatable, especially when I'm in Devon.
All right, well, we'll let our listeners be the judge of that. So thank you so much for joining us today on Menable Matters. In usual Menable Matters fashion, if I could ask you to tell us a bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do. And as I always jokingly say, if you can make that last about half an hour, that'd be brilliant.
I will try my best. Um, I'm from Devon originally. I was born down there, brought up down there, went to school down there. Um, did an apprenticeship in a garage from the age of 16. When I was qualified, I went to Fiji for 4 months with my dad. I came back from Fiji after traveling and couldn't get a job back on the spanners, so I decided to move up to Manchester. Well, it was Bolton originally where I went, and stayed in Burnley with some friends of the family. I then moved on to Mazda in Manchester, and that's how I sort of ended up in the Manchester area as a service advisor. So for me, in my head, it was rather talking about repairs rather than actually doing them. I'm
Mm,
very quite technically minded, so I didn't have an issue getting into that job role. It was quite straightforward.
yeah, yeah.
Um, then I met my daughter's father, and we had a baby. So I went on maternity leave for the 9 month period, 12-month period it was, and had little Eliza. Moved to Audi after that, after I decided to rejoin after the maternity break. I started at Stockport Audi, which wasn't Manchester, and became a senior service advisor. I always wanted to be a service manager. I've had so many good managers, and I want to follow in their footsteps. Some of them, some not so good. Um,
Oh, I think we might come on to that.
um, then I found an opportunity with Manchester Audi to become an assistant service manager. I did that for a few years and then got promoted to service manager. So it's quite a quick progression path for me, really, from assistant to service manager.
Right. And it has, yeah, I mean, that has been quick because I did cheekily ask you your age beforehand, and I'm not going to give it away, but you have only just come out of your 20s.
Yes.
So that's a huge amount of achievement in a fairly short space of time, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 10 years. Well, it's 9 with the maternity leave, but I'm very proud of it. It's something I've always wanted to do,
Mm,
and I'm doing really, really well at it now.
yeah,
I hope.
fantastic. Now, I mean, sir, on the service side of the business, I'm probably the first to say that I recognize that that is actually one of the more stressful parts of our industry, service advisor, and then through certainly to service manager. What would you say are some of the sort of biggest day-to-day pressures that you find?
I think it's just setting that um, expectations for the customer. That's the most stressful thing. You have a customer walk into a showroom to buy a car, and they're there to buy a car. It's the best experience that they're going to get is buying a car. Whereas when they come to us for the service, we've got to break the bad news to some customers, and it maybe a year after they've purchased the car, break the bad news and take the money off them after paying all the money for a service for
Mm,
the car. Sorry, it can be quite challenging, especially with the premium brand. The expectations that the customers want and trying to meet and deliver them demands, it can be very, very challenging for
yeah.
a service advisor, especially when it escalates to my level. I'm I'm quite experienced with customer complaints and things, so I don't find that side of it too difficult.
Mm.
But certainly for a service advisor, it can be a lot to manage in one day, and communicating with the customer and setting them expectations.
And it's a stressed purchase, of course, obviously, what you're doing, isn't it? It's not, you don't particularly want to get your car serviced or have that repair done, and especially if you've got to pay for it as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's who wants to spend all the money on a car? They don't expect these things to happen, but
Mm.
unfortunately they do.
Yeah,
It's only a car. It's not going to last forever. It do need repairs.
yeah. So, as service manager then, how big's your team?
I've got 7 advisors front of house,
Mhm.
and we've got 17 technicians and a
Oh,
workshop controller.
wow,
So
okay.
it is quite a big dealership.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
A
that's
lot of
amazing.
throughput.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And, so in a couple of words then, how would you sum up sort of being a service manager then, and dealing with all of that? Because, you've got the techs on the one side and the service advisors dealing with different stuff, and you're trying to bring all of that together. How would you sum it all up from a
Um,
service manager's perspective?
it is a hard job. I find the hardest bit for me is maybe people management.
Mm,
Um, when I was an assistant manager there, I made a lot of friends. To come from a assistant manager to a service manager, there's that level of that boundaries, if you like. It's hard to get them to see you as the manager, I suppose.
mm,
That's the hardest thing I'd say I've had to overcome. Also, the day-to-day jobs, the targets we've got to achieve, which isn't necessarily an issue or difficult. It's just the day-to-day stuff, the complaints that come through, which I said earlier is not too difficult. It is just, I'd say, people management and people phoning in sick and trying to find someone else to cover that person that's sick, and um, that side of things. The resources, sometimes we don't have enough loan cars for customers, then it falls on me to try and find that for them. It can be challenging that way, but it's summarizing it. I'd say it's very very full on and very busy. But I suppose a lot of people say that you wouldn't
yeah,
be the motor trade if it wasn't busy.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was talking to Richard Enifin the other day, and he was saying that that's busy is like the middle name of
Yeah,
anyone in our
absolutely.
industry. Really, it just sort of goes with the territory. So, so obviously, we talked there about you having achieved quite a lot in a fairly short space of time. Then, so let's backtrack on some of that. What was it that drew you to wanting to be a technician?
It was my dad. When I was 16, he bought me an old Mini, and we both did it up together. And I just loved it. I loved being hands on and
Mm,
like fixing things. I really really enjoyed that. Um, I've always been a bit of a tomboy anyway, so cars I've always been really interested in.
mm,
I didn't really do get very many good results in school. Didn't get on with paper and tests and things like that. I was always very full on and a hands-on sort of person. Um, but yeah, my dad got me into the car industry. Absolutely.
all right. And you served an apprenticeship.
Yes, I did
Was
three
that in a
years.
franchise dealership or
No, it was a little backstreet garage in the little village I lived in Devon.
right?
But I enjoyed it. It wasn't like our place now. There was no heating or anything like that. It was freezing.
So that was the archetypal sort of, dare I say, Phil Mitchell, Kevin Webster type of
Yeah, yeah,
place. Yeah,
complete
yeah,
opposite. Yeah, but I loved every minute of it. It was really, really good. I learned a
yeah.
lot from that.
A little bit different to where you are now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. A little family-run business, and they're still going really strong. They're a lovely family.
Yeah, yeah,
They proper took me in and helped me and showed me how to do the job. They were really, really helpful.
yeah. Well, that's good. So from your apprenticeship then, did you finish that and then go traveling, or was that something that you did while you were while you were doing your apprenticeship?
No, I finished the apprenticeship, and then once I got my qualifications, my dad was working in Fiji,
Mm,
so I sort of left and went out there with him for a few
mhm.
months, just did something different, and was hoping to come back from Fiji and get a job on the spanners, but there wasn't anything in Devon for me that I could do.
Right, right.
So
So
yeah.
why Fiji?
He works in aviation, my dad.
Ah,
So
right, okay.
he used to work all over the world when we were little.
Mm,
Um, and he was in Fiji at the time, and you could stay there 4 months at a time. So I just packed up and left and went with him.
Yeah. So now I'm intrigued as to how comes you found it tricky to get a job back on the spanners, to use your phrase, in your sort of home area, and that actually wasn't that long ago, and yet now we really are talking about sort of skill shortages and finding it very difficult to get good quality trained skilled people. So I'm struggling. Why did you find that difficult to get a job near you then? What was going on there?
There just wasn't a lot down there. Garages and stuff. I lived in Devon, obviously, and it was very remote down there.
Mm,
Unless you travelled a long distance to a city, there wasn't very many jobs down there. I'd say that was the reason why I did try and look for jobs, but there was nothing down there unless you wanted to drive 45 minutes there and back every day.
right.
I mean, I know Manchester's
Right,
like a
so that was
4 hour drive there and back.
I was gonna come
Completely
on to that. So
different.
what was that? That wasn't just to stick a pin in a map, was it? I mean, what drew you to Manchester?
No, I've got some family up here, both my parents are Northern. And it was my cousin was doing a dance show at the time, and her mum and stepdad were down watching, and he worked at a Mazda dealership up here and was looking for an advisor. So I was just telling him how I was struggling to get a job and X, Y, and Z. And he said, "Well, there's a job with me if you fancy it. It's a big move, it's a big change, but do you fancy it?" So that was on the Sunday, and then the Thursday night, I just packed my bag and left and
Wow,
moved up north.
wow.
Yeah, it was a big step, but
So
yeah,
now, before we started recording, I did sort of, or you said actually that there, you know, although we're here to talk about mental health and anxiety and all the rest of it, that you've been very lucky and you've never suffered with any mental health issues as such. But what you've just described there, I can just imagine for most people would have filled them with a huge amount of anxiety.
yeah, I
So,
think I was very nervous, and I remember being very anxious, I was very homesick, miss my mum,
mm,
miss my sisters. Um, yeah, I guess you don't realise that at the time, but when you think about it later, then yeah, there was definitely some anxiety there. It was you were lonely as well. You didn't have any friends up here. I didn't have any friends, didn't know anyone.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it was a big step, big change in my life.
So if you can remember, I mean, I know that wasn't that long ago, but in the grand scheme of things, a few years back, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with that anxiety and the stress of that then? And particularly, I think, as you say, moving away from your family, sort of almost starting again,
Mm.
two or 300 miles away from where you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to my family most nights. I used to go down there as often as I could, probably a couple
Mm,
of times a month on the weekends. I don't know, I was so committed to making it work because loads of people in Devon, like family, were like, "You'll be back, it's not going to work out." So I was so determined and committed to make it work. You just get on with it, you make new friends, and I just dealt with it. Speaking with the family most nights helped a lot. But I was so determined to make it work, and I loved it. Well, as soon as I moved up, I really did enjoy the area. It was completely different to Devon up here. It's so busy, loads going on. I mean, this shop doesn't shut at 10 o'clock. It's open 24 hours. It's little things like that.
yeah, yeah,
It's completely different. But I just dealt with it. It was hard, and I did get upset a few times, but um, I don't regret it at all, and I didn't at the time. It was, like I said, it was difficult, but I knew they were only 4 hours away, so you
yeah,
could just
yeah.
learn to deal with it.
Now, I don't want you to name names or be disrespectful to any family members or anything. But what you just said there really rang a bell with me, which was those family members or friends who said to you that they didn't think it would work out, and you're making a mistake. Or exact words that you said was about it not working out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why do you think? Why do you think they did that?
I think I'm quite a spontaneous person, and I used to, well, I still do. I try something, but I don't follow it through all the time.
Hmm,
So possibly that. I mean, when I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved cars, but I tried doing a law course. Then I wanted to do catering. I kept changing my mind quite a lot. I mean, I was only 16 at the time, but it was I think I am quite spontaneous, and a lot of the things I do start to do don't always follow through.
Right,
So
right.
possibly just my personality. I am quite spontaneous and just off the cuff, like to do stuff. So
So what was your reaction to them when they were saying, "Oh, it's not, it's not gonna work out and you'll be back," and all of that? Well, how did that make you feel, and what did you sound like a coaching session, this, didn't it? How how did that, how did that land with you then?
Like I said, it just made me more determined to make it work. I wanted
Right.
to. I tried the spanners, and I loved it, but
Mm.
I couldn't see myself. I wanted more than that. I wanted to better myself, and I wanted a proper career. And this step that I was taking, I knew that I could go on and on and on and up and up and up. And I was so determined to make it work. It just made me more have that fire in my belly to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. Right, so tell me a bit about that then. Where's that come from, Emma?
Um, my dad, I think I'm very inspired by him. He's always been a workaholic. Not that that's a good or bad thing. He's started right from the bottom. I mean, when we were small children, my dad had 3 jobs just to keep the house going and food on the table. And he ended up being CEO for an airline. He's done very well. And I think I do get that from him. I'm still a workaholic. I do work as much as I can, often as I can. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. But
Mm, mm,
it's he's definitely the person it's inspired me to be where I am today and to push me to that as well. We do speak quite often about my work and his work because
yeah,
they are
yeah,
similar management roles, and he helps me and guides me as well.
yeah, yeah. Where in the world is he right now?
He's at Heathrow now. He's
Oh,
back
is
in
it?
London. Yeah, but he's
Oh, well, that
been
narrows it down a bit.
yeah, he works down there in the logistics building. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's been all over. He's been very lucky for children as kids. When he started going up that ladder, we got so many lovely holidays because we went to where he's
I
working.
bet.
It was
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. Now, I mean, again, when we were talking before, you were saying that sort of, the mental health side of things is not something that you've kind of noticed that you've had any issues with. But now that you're in management and you've got a big team, I mean, what have you got, 23, 24 people, something like that?
Yeah.
Um, and they're all going to be different, from techs and apprentices to service advisors, workshop controller. Do you look after parts as well?
No, we've got our parts manager that does that.
Okay, right. I love the way you got a smile on your
One
face when you
less
say
thing.
it. So, with a team that size, I'm guessing that you must see or have seen some issues and anxieties and stresses from, and the way different people deal with it. What would you say have been your sort of observations there?
Um, yeah, I've seen more recently doing this role. You're the person that people go to. So we get things like some a member of staff that the missus got pregnant and it wasn't expected, and helping them through that and to get their head around it. To I've had a member of staff that has got mental health that recently rejoined, and they talk to me quite a lot about the issues. But I suppose for me, it's just listening and helping and trying to understand that everyone is different. Like you've said, it's a hard thing to manage, I'd say,
Hmm.
but I do try my best to listen to them and support where we can. And I'm probably the most flexible manager in the group. My manager goes mad at me for it, but I do try and look after my staff and help them where I can if they need to leave early for a reason or need any support or extra time off or anything. I'm very flexible, but I do think I'm quite an understanding manager with them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, that's and how much of that do you think comes from, obviously you've got Eliza now.
Yeah.
A big smile there. How old is she?
She's 7.
She's 7. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
how much of do you think being a mum, and particularly being a mum on your own, do you find that you carry into day to day in terms of your work, and vice versa as well?
Yeah, it does open when you're preparing. It does open your eyes to this completely new world of worry and anxiety, and you're always thinking about them. So I think with me, it's helped made me more empathetic towards people
Mm,
being a mum. I don't think I could have done this job with all them people without being a mum,
Hmm.
because it does change the way you think about things and how you connect with people and how you talk to them. I was quite an impatient person before I had Eliza, I think, but now I'm more chilled and I do take my time and listen to people. It does change your world. But then on the other side, it changes it where I'm a single mum making my work life work, and you get some people that need to leave for childcare, need to leave, stay late, or on the other hand, I work 12 hours a day with work, with a kid, and I make it work. So why
Mm.
can't other people? So I get it from both sides. Um, it's tricky in it, but it's definitely made me a better person being a mum and understanding people. Like I said, I couldn't do this job, I don't think, without having that empathy and being a mum and talking to the different people about their issues.
Yeah, yeah. So, and with that in mind, I mean, any particular incidents or things that have happened in your time as a manager that have made you sort of stop and think, particularly around the mental health and anxiety stuff? Again, without naming any names, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean it's different every time, but I mean one specific thing I can remember is a member of staff coming to me and just breaking down in front of me because they couldn't cope with the
mm,
work and the home life balance. Um, I think before I would have just said, "Oh, just get on with it. What you're playing at." But I did listen to them and I felt for them, and yeah, it was really difficult to, I don't know, think back now. Like I couldn't have dealt with that before without what I've been through with Eliza. But I could really relate to them. I won't go into details because it
no,
was
no,
people will realise, but what they were telling me, I could really, really relate to it being a mum, because
yeah,
it was similar to similar situations.
mm,
Yeah, it was hard because they were really, really worked up about it. And we just sat down. I think we were there for an hour, just sat drinking a cup of tea and just talking things through. And afterwards, and they were fine. They calmed down. They went home, sorted what they needed sorted. Had a few days off and came back, and they were so grateful that we just sat down and had that chat
mm,
because they didn't know what to do, and it was really it did touch me a little bit. It was hard.
yeah, yeah. Because I guess the thing is with all of that is that everyone's got their story, right? Everyone's got stuff going on outside of work in their home lives and private lives or whatever. Um, and that's going to have a bearing on what they do day to day in the workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's got different things going on at home. A lot of my staff are single parents as well, so we can relate quite a lot.
Yeah.
But even just personal things like they've got kids' activities out of school, not even just children's activities out of school, their own activities out of work, and
Mm,
it's I don't know, they've got to have that work and home life balance to get through it, I suppose.
so with what you were saying there then, Emma, what would be your top tips for other managers? Because you're clearly, and I know that you were, kind of put forward to do this podcast because of being, a young female in a fairly senior position, in what is still a very kind of male dominated environment. So what would be your top tips for other managers to be able to look after their team in the way that you do?
I think for me, the best advice I could give would be just sit, take some time away with us if it's a certain staff member, and just listen to them. I find because I'm more patient now, I can relate to them more and listen to them and understand and try and help them.
Mm,
I've worked with a lot of managers, and I think by working with them, it's taught me how not to be as well. Where you'd go to them with an issue and it wasn't their problem, it's in work, it's not their problem.
yeah,
Where I'm very, very sympathetic and I will listen to the staff. I'll take that time to bond with them and help them and understand where they're coming from. So
mm,
that's the advice I could give, would be just to sit and listen and guide the staff, stay close to them and try and just help as best you can. It is a big issue, mental health at the moment, and it can go unnoticed. We don't know who's suffering and who's not unless they do open up and make
yeah,
it a thing. But for someone that's quite big and a big character, and they wouldn't necessarily open up and tell someone about that. So I
yeah,
think just by being close to your members of staff, they'll have that relationship where they can open up to you and talk to you more which I think I have got with all my members of staff that
Yeah.
work for me.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, you did mention, and I said I'd pick up on it, the fact that you said that you'd learnt from some managers, or learnt from all your managers in the past, some good and some not so good. So, so again, I'm going to ask you to give any secrets away that might help people identify who you're talking about. But give me some examples of what you meant by, good managers and not so good managers.
So, I mean, to start with the good managers I've had, obviously I've got Eliza. Even now coming back to Jardine, I've got I drop my little girl at school every day. So the rush hour in the morning, I don't get to work till about 9 o'clock, and they openly they allow that flexibility for me, which some workplaces may not.
Hmm.
But that's just good management from my managers. Um, Bad management I've had before, where I need to leave for a parents' evening and not allowed. You book the half a day off, they're not flexible at all. That probably isn't bad management, but it's by the book. I've had before micromanaged, didn't like that at all. Set targets, got to do them by this. If you're not, then there's performance reviews. It's Micromanaging wasn't good. I've had, gosh, there's been quite a few bad ones really. Not at Jardine, to say none of them have been at Jardine. It's all been previous places I've worked. I started at one place and I was told that I'm making the last person look like a superstar because I was rubbish,
Oh,
which
that was
wasn't
nice.
nice when you just started another job. It wasn't
God.
nice at all. Um, yeah, I think I don't know if people see you as a threat when you are good at your job, and they like
Mm.
to put you down so you lose your confidence. Maybe that. The other bad one I had was another one of the managers starting to listen to all my calls and play them back to me in front of the team. Oh, that and listening to yourself. Right, when I watch this back again later, Stephen, it's going to be horrible listening to yourself back again. But
Oh no, you'll
oh,
be fine. You're doing well. Well, what you will be able to identify is whether you've got that northern accent or not.
yeah, definitely. I'll compare it to my sister's accent and see if it's any good. But just that listening back to all the calls in front of the whole team, that it wasn't nice.
Mm.
And it was pulling up faults, and I just felt very micromanaged. It wasn't good at all. But a lot of good things as well, like the flexibility with my childcare,
Yeah.
and that's really helped me out massively because I couldn't do this job without doing that. 'Cause my kid comes first, Liza comes first. She's number one priority.
Yeah. Now, I've been working with Jardine Motors now for a few months, and I must admit I am getting a decidedly good impression that it's a much, much better place to work than a lot of the places that you've described, and certainly some of the ones that I've experienced in the industry.
Yeah,
Um, and that's amazing, because obviously we do have a skill shortage, as we've touched on before, and we need to attract more people into the industry, and it sounds like you're in a good place to do that now. So if you were to talk to your 16-year-old self again and give her some advice as to what she should be looking for or expect if she joins and wants a career in the automotive industry, what would you say? That's a big
I'd,
question. I'll probably put you on the
it
spot
is.
there.
No, as I said at me, I wouldn't change anything I've done. I think the only advice I could give myself back then is to not trust as many people, because I put a lot of trust into people in my career, and it backfired, and you get let down by some people, and it would just be to have your wits about you. I mean, like I said, in Devon, it's very remote. There's nothing there. So coming up here, I was not streetwise at all,
Mm,
and it's completely different. You don't. I still now trust people, and maybe shouldn't. That's the advice I'd give myself, is not to put all your trust in to one person, and to
right,
listen to others as well.
right. But and that's fascinating, because is that something that sort of varies, employer to employer, do you think? I mean, is that about, I'm just wondering whether that's about culture and psychological safety.
Possibly. I mean, I can't fault Jardine at all.
Mm,
They're an amazing company to work for. I've not experienced any of these issues with them. The previous place where I worked, I was promised the world, promised promotions because I worked hard, and then it was just given to someone else. That's hence why I left.
mm,
Um, Previous places I've worked, another manager would leave early, leave me there on my own, and put the blame on me for certain things. And again, that's the trust where you just believe in their leader, you're going to trust them.
Mm.
But to have an open mind about things going forward, I suppose it's tricky because you come up here with no friends or don't know anyone, and you want that to be everyone's friend. You want that social life, and you're at work 80% of the time socializing. So that's you do try and build friends and make friendships there at work, and some haven't worked out for me. I've been I don't know, it's difficult. You can't swear on this podcast, can you? So
You can say whatever you want, Emma. I could always
so
edit it out or just disassociate us from any comment.
yeah.
What does
No,
the word rhyme with?
ship.
Oh, well, I thought you actually said it then.
No, I said ship.
Ship. Right. Okay. So what? Yeah, go on.
I think I've just been shit on a few times by certain people, and without realizing it, and then it's when it comes to that, you just feel a bit let down because you put all that trust into that person and they shit on you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, yes, I would agree with that. I think I know exactly what you mean. And I think, as we're talking about mental health and anxiety, you're clearly a fairly sort of strong individual, and someone that has got a fairly good level of resilience. But I could just imagine that from what you've described, those are the kind of ingredients that could, in someone more anxious, create quite a problem.
Yeah, definitely. It caused me some issues when they started doing the calls. I didn't want to be on the phones. I wanted to
Mm,
be on my own in a room. I didn't want to speak in front of the team on the phones. Like when you're doing as a service advisor, you do your middle part of the call where you're speaking to the customer, trying to upsell work. I didn't feel confident picking the phone up and doing it with the team around me because I thought
yeah,
everyone would
yeah.
be listening and to what I'm saying. So it did knock my confidence, and it took me, I'd say, a good year to get that back again, to start believing in myself again.
Mm,
But that was just one specific manager that can do that to you just by pulling you in front of everyone and making you feel that crap at your job. It does have a big impact on you. So I never pull any of my staff in front of anyone for that reason, because I know
mm,
how it can knock your confidence
yeah.
massively.
So I guess that's the point, really, isn't it? Is that actually what that's helped to do is to shape the way that you interact with your team now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which leads me on to something else, with not necessarily mental health related, but it's about stereotypes. Um, because I'm guessing that in your workshop and your service advisor team, that you've got a mix of ages, genders, backgrounds, cultures. Um, how do you deal with all of that every day?
Um,
Let me be brutally honest then, right? I'm not in my 30s. That's a long time ago for me. So how would you deal with if you had somebody at my age and experience in your team, how would that look for you?
um, like I said earlier, I try to not make friends with my team, but I do show like interest in them,
Mm,
just so we've got that morning conversation and how you getting on, how's this at home, just so you've got that interaction with that person and they feel comfortable talking to you.
mhm.
I don't think age or culture or anything should matter in a workplace. We're all the same, we're all humans, we're all there to do a job. So I don't think it should matter at all. Um, I think it's just as long as you've got that relationship with that person, they'll feel comfortable talking to you and approaching you when they do have an issue or need anything.
Yeah. That was a mic drop moment for me, Emma. No, but I honestly, I mean, all joking aside, I totally get it. And I have to say, for years, and I don't know what, I think it was my own insecurity, my own ego. One of the things that used to really bother me, and as I started to get older in my career, I realized that the day was rapidly approaching where this was going to be inevitable, that one day I would have a boss that was younger than me. And how would I cope with that? And I have to say, although I just said, how would you deal with somebody of my age and experience in your team? If I find myself needing employment, I wouldn't hesitate to work for somebody like you, Emma.
Oh, thank you.
And I mean that because I can tell that genuinely. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I can see, which is, that sort of warmth and care in your eyes. But if you're listening to it, hopefully you can pick that up as well. And I think anyone who works in your team is privileged to experience that. So
Oh,
keep
thank
going,
you. No, I
keep on,
will definitely.
keep on keeping on.
Oh, thank you.
No, that's good stuff. So, as I've been finishing up with these podcasts with all of your colleagues, what would you say would be your kind of top tips? And I know I'm dropping you in on it there, so we'll come back to this in a minute, but I'm going to give you some thinking time. What would be your top tips for dealing with mental health, anxiety, stress, and pressure in the workplace? But before you answer that, tell us a little bit about what Emma gets up to outside of work. And I'm guessing that a good proportion of that involves Eliza, who I want to hear a bit more about.
Oh yeah, I do everything with Eliza. I mean, her dad has her every other weekend.
Mm.
So the weekends when I don't have her, I'm working, or I've got a local pub near me. I've got quite a good family life with. They are all lovely in there.
That's good.
Not the best, but no, most of my time I'm straight as soon as I get home from work, it's Eliza first. Then when she's in bed, might log on and do some work, but we do a lot together. I've got another friend who's very, very similar to me. She's also a service manager, but it's for Tesla.
Oh,
And
well, okay.
she's the single mum as well with a small child. So we spend a lot of our time together,
Hmm.
being in similar positions and children similar ages. We do a lot together. I'd say most weekends we're together.
Yeah,
So
that's good. Yeah, and even your profile picture, because obviously I'd checked everyone out before we talked, but even your profile picture is sort of you and your family, isn't it? Which,
yeah,
given
me and my
how important that
sisters.
is.
Yeah, I'm a huge family person. They come first. They come first before anything.
Mm,
You've got a job as a job, isn't it? There's
mm,
loads out there. You don't want to lose your job, but it's your family and your kids come first.
yeah,
That's your number one priority in life. For
yeah,
me, it is anyway.
100%, brilliant. So, whilst I kept you talking, did you actually get to think about what your top tips would be for managers or anyone really in your line, especially on the service side at the very sharp end of the business? Your top tips for handling stress, pressure, anxiety.
I think for the stress, anxiety, and pressure, um, like I just said, it's a job. The best way I've learned to deal with things like that is it's my bubble. No one's going to get in it. No one's going to upset me. The best way to deal with it is, especially as a service advisor, it's not your car, it's a customer's car, it's their issue. You're just unfortunately delivering that bad news.
Hmm.
So don't take it personal, don't get upset, don't feel the pressure, just deal with it. Help, talk to your manager, talk to your senior, because they've been there. That's why they are where they are now.
Yeah,
And they can relate to everything that that person is going through.
yeah, brilliant. That's some good sound advice there, Emma. Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
good. So thank you so much for being on Menable Matters. That conversation was fascinating, and I hope that there's some stuff in there that resonates with other people as well. Just one final thing that I would ask you, and it's not necessarily related to mental health, but we are sort of facing a little bit of a skill shortage and struggling to attract people into the industry. So what would you say if you were out and about, say at schools or whatever, talking to young people to try and sort of help them think about a career in our industry? What would be your suggestions for them?
I think the beauty of the motor trade is there's so many different jobs you could do in it, from service to sales to parts to HR to IT to accounts. There's so many different avenues to do.
Mm,
People see a garage or an Audi dealership or any dealership and just think car sales.
hmm.
It's probably subconsciously that's what people think. But there's so many different avenues you could explore that involve so many different roles in the industry. So I think come in and speak to us. Everyone's happy to come and speak. Look online, and there's so many different job opportunities or apprenticeships that people can do with
Yeah,
the workplace. It's amazing, really.
yeah. Well, that's fantastic advice. Thank you. Good stuff. So, Emma, have you enjoyed being a guest on Menable Matters?
Yeah, I have. I was a bit I was a bit anxious coming on because I've not done anything like this before. But yeah, no, I am glad. It is nice. You don't realise until you've spoke about some things, do you? Like today, speaking to you, it has made me think about the life I've had so far and the challenges that I've been through so far, and it's where I am now. I'm very proud to be where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, good on you. And
Mhm.
keep that going.
Thank
What a
you.
lovely way to end. So, Emma Kingston, thank you so much for being on Menable Matters, in association with Jardine Motors, of course, as we go through Mental Health Awareness Week, May 2023. And thank you very much again. And we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You take care.
You too.
Bye.